Command Sergeant Carter Halt had imagined 1,000 ends, bored to death by a slide deck, was rocketing up the list. The amphitheater was a shrine to hegemony sterility, pearl-white tiers arcing gracefully, holographic projectors humming with non-threatening calm, and a single panoramic window framing the clockwork walls of the Axiom Citadel beyond. It was an institution built on the conviction that a nuanced argument could deflect a plasma bolt. Carter's blood-soaked career testified otherwise. He had already mapped the room's kill zones, too many windows, not enough defensible exits. A death trap by committee. Professor Valen drifted across the stage, elongated, fine-boned, the sort of being a strong breeze might fold into origami. His voice was polished riverstone tumbling in a slow stream, smooth, rounded, calibrated for condescension. He lifted a long, three-jointed finger and the holo resolved into a grainy monochrome, human soldiers haggard and mud-caked, huddled in a trench like a fresh grave. Observe, Valen intoned, echo soft in the cavern. The paradox of human strategy, endurance over lightning. History not of conquest, but of survival purchased at catastrophic, almost spiritual cost. Carter shifted in the dove-grey uniform of a liaison to interspecies strategic studies, a title so dull it worked like a cloaking device. Survival beats extinction, Professor, he thought. Etch that on the tomb of the Grenly Fifth War host. He scanned the cadets below, Kia, the young Lorian, antennae flicking as she scribbled. Beside her, Brog, hulking Jotun sitting so straight he could have served as a plumb line. Good kids, bright, earnest, and primed to be eviscerated 10 seconds into a real war. Valen glided toward his finale. The trench flickered into a high-resolution image of a shattered spaceport on video. Even their celebrated moments, he said in somber, theatrical reverence, such as the stand during the video exodus, are framed as glorious deaths. A ceasefire for evacuation was brokered, and yet the human Black Ops cell refused to yield. They fought until no one was left. Their triumphs merely postpone annihilation, at costs no rational species would accept. That polished lie scraped across Carter's scar tissue. He had carried it in silence for 2 years. Not this time. His hand rose, a slab of dissent in the hall's shadowed back. Valen's rhythm faltered. He peered upward, lids heavy with annoyance. A human, the liaison. Do you have a counterpoint, Command Sergeant Halt? Carter stood. Compact by galactic standards, especially next to titans like Brog, he still carried a coiled gravity that redirected attention. The murmurs died. With respect, Professor, Carter said, voice flat as a railgun slug. You're wrong. A collective inhale. One did not tell Professor Valen he was wrong. It was like telling a black hole it had a bad hair day. Wrong, Valen repeated, tasting the word like spoiled nectar. On what ground? History? Analysis? Enlighten us. Carter answered by unfastening the magnetic clasp of his drab jacket. Under it, a plain black undershirt, and a row of medals, bright tombstones for different versions of himself. He tapped the highest star, polished tungsten shot with captured starlight. Confederacy Star of Valor. Hadesmore Anomaly Campaign. Sir, Earth always wins. Down 1. Hegemony Cluster for extreme gallantry. Pulled your ambassador's child out of a burning shuttle on Tartarus. His finger settled on a plain metallic disc banded with deep crimson. It bent the light around it. This one you know, the Crimson Bar of Vidya. Your provisional government awarded it, posthumously, to the Human Special Operations Unit 9 who held the South Gate. A tremor ran through Valen's frame. He knew it. He'd been on the design committee. His daughter, Karis, had been on one of the last transports out, her life bought by the men he'd just called irrational. Carter let the quiet harden. Then, sir, I was there. He opened the jacket the rest of the way, a mosaic of hells. And sir, we held the line. The statement detonated in the tranquil heart of the galaxy's most peaceful institution. Hours later, in his bare quarters, Carter ignored the angry pings from Citadel administration. He'd torched his cover, shattered his mission brief, and likely dumped his career into a decaying orbit, for a truth no one here wanted. He called up a secure star chart. A lone freighter, TCS Nightjar, crept along the Grandel border. A Q-ship. A shark in a dolphin suit. Predictable, steady. Comforting. From a hidden compartment he drew a thumb-sized device, matte black, dense, cold. The HFY beacon, his dead man's switch. A test blink, green. Power 100%. Not a call for help. A scream for retribution. A flash outside snagged his eye. Not the soft pulse of orbital traffic. A star born and killed in the same instant. Another. A third. The Citadel's orbital defense platforms blossomed into incandescent flowers. The sirens hit, red alert's gut-twisting shriek. Debate was over. Grenly dropships hatcheted through the atmosphere, hulls glowing with re-entry heat. A decapitation strike. They wanted the Citadel, the hegemony's central strategic archives, the nursery for its future admirals. Strangle the next generation in its cradle. Carter moved before the sirens peaked. The liaison persona evaporated. The sergeant took the wheel. Go back. Kinetic sidearm, capital offense on campus, spare cells, multi-tool, trauma kit. He clipped the HFY beacon inside his belt. Hard reassurance. Then out, into a corridor of pure panic. Cadets from a dozen species screamed and sprinted. Elegant theory met ugly reality. Through the arch to the quad he saw them, Grenly shock troops in dried blood armor, advancing in disciplined fire teams. Emerald plasma cut down students and faculty with cold efficiency. Tactical math took over. Cover port and starboard. Open ground is a kill box. Enemy from 090. Valen stood frozen in the corridor, worldview being disemboweled in front of him. For Grenly rounded the far corner, rifles rising. Valen stood in their sights, so did a cluster of cadets, Kia and Brog among them. No time to shout. Carter sprinted, drove his shoulder into Valen's midsection, and bulldozed the professor, Kia, Brog, and two more cadets into a service passage just as plasma chewed the wall they'd occupied. The air filled with the stink of molten ceramic. Pinned beneath him, Valen gasped. Kia whimpered, clutching her datapad. Brog was on hands and knees, stunned. Carter rose, voice snapping like a drill sergeant's whip. With me. Move. He herded them through the service maze, pipes, conduits, humming machines. The Citadel's elegance fell away, replaced by utility. Distant plasma pops and thin screens became their landmarks. Here, he grunted, forcing open a door, Commons galley, authorized personnel only. Stainless counters. Silent synthesizers. Red strobes peeling across metal. Footsteps approached. A sweet team. Locker, Carter ordered, pointing at a walk-in refrigerator. They crammed inside. He was about to follow when he spotted a stack of cafeteria trays, half-inch metal, heavy. Desperation sparked. He grabbed one, flattened against the wall, tray canted like a riot shield. The first Grenly stepped in, rifle ready. The shock came, green sun in a bottle. Carter angled the tray. The bolt struck with a shriek, gouged a molten groove, ricocheted into a synthesizer that exploded in sparks and nutrient paste. The shock numbed his arm. The tray glowed cherry along the wound. The Grenly hesitated, half a second of, why isn't he dead? Long enough. Carter closed, swinging the tray's searing edge into the soldier's helmet. Plastile crunched, the body dropped. Carter caught the rifle before it hit the floor and cut down the second Grenly entering. He pivoted through the doorframe and stitched the remaining two in the corridor. 5 seconds. Done. Through the locker's crack, Brog watched, eyes wide. He'd trained for honor duels and tidy rules. This wasn't combat as he knew it. This was pest control, ugly, efficient, honorless. It was a human fighting for the next breath. Inside the locker, metal tang and cold air. Valen sat parchment pale. Kia shook, curled around her datapad. Brog stared at Carter field stripping the captured rifle with calm authority. They'll send more, Carter said, ejecting the cell, checking charge, clicking it home. We can't stay. Kia latched onto his steadiness. Fear condensed into data. Schematics, she whispered, fingers dancing. The main campus sits on utility tunnels, power, data, environmentals. They connect everything. We could move unseen. Carter's smile was all wolf. All right, kids. School's out. Time for a practical on asymmetric warfare. Kia, you navigate. Brog, you're the battering ram. Any questions? Brog shook his massive head. None. They dropped through a floor grate into a crow-dark world. The citadel above was light and space. Below was cramped metal, cold air, the damp of recycled water, and the endless hum of tired machines. Kia led by the glow of her screen. Left, she whispered. Under the hall of diplomacy. Brog's weight made the catwalk groan. He pried open jammed hatches with brute ease. Carter ghosted between them, teaching hand signals, halt, danger, move, cover. They learned fast. Hours bled together. They became creatures of the dark, vision narrowed to the pale beam and the sound of breath. A Grenly patrol clanked directly above. Thermal sensors. Down, Carter hissed, pointing to an oily maintenance cistern. They slid into freezing black water, air punched from their lungs, huddled motionless as footsteps hammered inches overhead. When the noise faded, they rose, shivering, foul-smelling, alive. In a dry dead-end pocket, Carter called a halt. Kia's teeth chattered, a long scrape marred her forearm. Carter knelt, cracked his kit, and cleaned the wound. This'll sting. She flinched but held. Biophone hissed and sealed. Brog split a nutrient pack and handed halves to Kia and Carter. Grey paste, bring communion. Carter nodded once. Understood. Valen watched, shamed by his useless theory. A bandage. Shared food. A unit formed in the dark, sergeant, 2 cadets, and a professor becoming something like a family. There, Kia whispered, pointing at her schematics. Primary comms nexus. They're setting a local command repeater. Take it out, and their coordination on this side collapses. Carter peeked. 2 Grenly techs working a portable array, 3 guards in loose patrol stances. Kia, localized EMP. Small blast. It won't kill their weapons, they are hardened. But I can blind their HUDs for a few seconds. Brog, see that wall panel? Your shield. The plan was simple and entirely absent from hegemony manuals. Kia pulsed the EMP, helm lights flickered and died. Brog charged like a freight train, hoisting the plastile slab. A blind shot sizzled against it, leaving a glowing scar. Brog roared and plowed through the emplacement, scattering techs and gear. Carter followed, the captured rifle spitting precise green. 3 guards down before they cleared their vision. 10 seconds. Done. They scooped weapons and the damaged repeater. Carter's grin went wicked. Kia, make it broadcast. What do you want to send? Something annoying. Minutes later the Grenly net filled with a looped, off-speed dirge of conquest, their own funeral music, weaponized. Petty? Absolutely. Morale is ammo. A faint civilian distress ping began repeating on Kia's screen, weak, intermittent, from the Grand Archives, a vault of millennia. Survivors, Brog rumbled. We have to help. Carter didn't like it. Large groups get you killed. But ghosts from video wouldn't let him walk. They surfaced through a vent into the silent stacks. The air smelled of old parchment and fear. 50 students and faculty huddled in the dark between towering shelves. Valen, too. The professor pulled Carter aside, face carved with new understanding. After your objection, I checked restricted military archives. He held up his pad, the after-action report from Vidya, listing every member of Unit 9, Carter among them, as killed in action. Carter remembered the colonel sliding the falsified file across a dark desk, the back-channel medal. The light protects us. Keeps the wolves from the door. Wear it anyway. My daughter, Karis, Valen said, voice breaking. She was on the last transport. She lived because the South Gate held. They told us you died buying her life. I used your sacrifice as a footnote to argue futility. The first casualty is always truth, Carter said. Now let's get you out alive. Deep in a records room, Kia worked the captured repeater. I can't crack their primary encryption. But this hardwire's absurdly overspec'd. If we drag it to a high gain point, the main antenna or the admin spire, I can brute force a single burst past the jamming. I can transmit the HFY protocol. The admin spire, tallest on campus, almost certainly the Grenly command post. That's not a mission, Brock said. It's a suicide run. Then I'm going alone, Carter answered. Not a suggestion. An order. His protocol. His burden. No, the word landed like a mountain. Brock had stepped closer, jaw set. In the lecture hall I was a cadet. In the tunnels I followed. Not anymore. You taught us to be a unit. We finish as a unit. Kia rose, fear burned down to loyalty. You can't carry the repeater and fight to the top. Tactically unsound. You need me to run the broadcast and him to clear the way. Carter looked at them, two kids forged in hours to something else. Not insubordination. Birth of soldiers. He felt something he hadn't allowed in years, pride. They built a plan. Brock traced conduits beneath the west quad. Primary generator fuel line. One charge here ruptures the junction. A diversion, Carter said. While they run to the fire. I go up, Brock finished, finger following a service shaft that ended 2 levels below the spire's roof. I'll be your backup. It wasn't a gamble. It was synthesis, Brock's infrastructure sense, Kia's tech, Carter's ruthless pragmatism. The west quad blossomed into a rolling fireball that painted a brief dawn across the night. Alarms howled as Grenly units redeployed. Carter and Kia broke from the archives and sprinted for the spire. They fought a vertical war, lobby taken in a rush, lifts bypassed, stairs swallowed 2 at a time. 2 levels, ambush position, Kia panted, eyes on sync schematics. Carter skipped a beat, ricocheted a sidearm round off concrete. The slug cracked into a waiting helmet. Before the body fell, he was past, rifle covering the next landing. They reached the rooftop access, reinforced plastile. 30 seconds, Kia gasped, hefting the repeater. I need 30 clear once I plug in. The door vaporized inward under a shaped plasma charge. Warlord Hacker stepped through the smoke, armor a darker crimson, face an ice-cold reptilian mask, flanked by 2 honor guards. Close quarters hell. Carter shoved Kia behind the main console and laid down covering fire. His rifle overheated to a sullen red. He dropped it, drew his sidearm. A bolt grazed his shoulder, white heat stealing breath. He dumped a cell into one guard. The other broke toward Kia. A maintenance hatch screamed open. Brock hauled himself onto the roof, soot black and grinning through pain. He ripped a server rack door free and slammed into the charging Grenly. A plasma bolt burned his shoulder, he didn't slow. Impact like a car crash, guard tumbled off the spire into the dark. Bleeding, Carter grabbed a bent length of antenna, a clumsy club, and planted himself between Hacker and his team. One man, all grit. Hacker shoved aside his wavering guard, leveled a heavy pistol at Carter's head. Primitive, he snarled, finger tightening. It's away. Kia screamed from behind the console, voice splitting wind and dying machinery. HFY protocol is away. The sky tore open, not with the hegemony's elegant silver, but with sharp-toothed silhouettes painted in light drinking matte black. Marine dropships from TCS Nightjar. Helldivers fell on grave chutes, black armor turning Grenly into ceremonial props. Railguns whispered and tungsten answered, hypersonic slugs carving positions into molten art. Dropships swatted from the sky. Patrols erased. No honor. No warning. Just overwhelming, inhumanly fast human firepower. The battle for the Axiom Citadel ended in 90 seconds. On the roof, controlled chaos. A Terran medic slapped hissing biofoam onto Carter's shoulder, another patched Brock, who looked dazed and immensely pleased with himself. Kia talked a mile a minute at a comms specialist, hands dancing over the jury-rigged repeater. Valen found Carter, escorted by a Marine who looked like he could arm-wrestle a small moon. The professor stared from Carter's blood-streaked face to the brutally efficient Marines and back, his universe shattered and rebuilt in a day. "My lecture," he whispered, "or unruined braided together. I said humans don't win wars. I was wrong. You do win." The medic offered Carter a small white synth cig. Carter took it, hand steadying as the tip glowed. He looked at Valen and saw not an enemy, just another survivor. "No, Professor," he said, voice rough but clear. He exhaled, the smoke tore away into the stardust dark. "You were right the first time. We don't win them." He watched the last embers drift from the rooftop. "We end them."